welcome to Spiritual Badass TV, Kate Evans. Kate, I am so excited to interview you because you have a very interesting life, I think. And you've had a lot of different experiences that many of which you write about in your books, which are charming and well written, I might add. And but I'm particularly interested in talking about inner guidance, following that inner voice and how it shows up for you, because it's different for everybody. And how you dealt with that. And then also the times when you didn't listen and you learned something that way, learn the hard way. We all do that, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, the last few years you've been traveling. You've become a professional vagabond.
Okay, I like that.
So, can you tell us more about that, like how that came to be and how you allowed it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's definitely a big example of allowing in my life. And I've learned so much. It just started 3 years ago. And I feel like so much has happened during that time. And yet it's really interesting because I also feel like even though so much has happened, that in some ways time has sped up and it slowed down. Like the sense of time has changed so much just because of just hurtling ourselves off the cliff into what I call the fertile void. Just trusting that when you allow yourself to, just as I said, jump off the cliff, that new things are going to occur and appear. And that's been very true in our lives. So how this started was we were living in a house in Santa Cruz and we loved it. We're really enjoying our lives. And then I decided I wanted to take an early retirement from the university where I was teaching, because I found out through a series of things that I was able to do so. And I said, well, this will be great because then I can focus on my writing and we can focus on traveling. Well, then the house that we were living in went up for sale. And we had this opportunity perhaps to buy it, but you know how real estate in California is, especially seaside real estate in California. And we realized, wow, this would mean putting all of our resources into a house and changing course, because we're sort of freeing ourselves up from the job, from, the regular sort of lifestyle that we had set up. And so, wow, what does this mean for us? So we took this opportunity of the house going on the market to really sit with it and decided what we really want. And when I say really sit with it, we were actually in the car when we got the call. And 30 minutes after the call, where we just floated out ideas and possibilities, we came to this decision, and it just felt absolutely right. It was an inspired decision to live life on the road, to not have a home. If we had no mortgage and no rent, then that meant freeing up funds to be able to just live a traveling life for a while, a life without a house. And so it was thrilling and exciting and nerve-wracking. And I just, at that moment, I remember sitting in the car and we had talked about it and I was really excited. And we'd written down all the places that we wanted to go. Friends that we had who lived internationally, friends that we had that lived in the United States that had invited us to come see them. And we said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to go see our friends and experience more of life in the way that we really want to. And then when I started getting a little nervous about it, I just said, okay, let's just take this wonderful list we just created. I'm going to put it on the floor of the car, stick it in my purse, and we're just going to continue on with our day with what we're doing, which we were driving up to Tahoe to go skiing. And so we did it within 2 months after we made that decision. I retired. We flew to Australia and started our adventure. We spent 6 weeks in Australia traveling, and that was the beginning. Of course, there were other unexpected things that happened along the way, which we might want to talk about at some point.
That's amazing. What advice might you give to someone who is itching to have that kind of adventure in their life, but maybe they're scared, maybe they don't have a pension, or retirement to fall back on, maybe they have limited resources. How can they follow their bliss, would you say, and feel safe in doing it?
Right. Well, first of all, we definitely have certain financial resources, but we did not have it all figured out financially. We didn't know exactly how we were going to make it all work. We didn't, for some people, it's really comforting to, create lists and to specifically write out, okay, I'm going to spend this much. We're not really that way. We're a little more go with the flow. And we just, honestly, we trusted because both of us have skills that we believe in and that we trust, that we trust in, that we knew that as we were adventuring, things would unfold. We love the world of the internet and know that there are other ways to make money than basically going to a real-time job. And so we had some of those things cooking, and but again, we didn't have everything figured out. And I'm a firm believer that there is no really the right time. And if you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait for the right time, then it's never going to come. That said, like I said, we have a lot of faith in, I'm a writer and my husband's a business developer. And he's a very entrepreneurial kind of guy. And so because of the internet, we knew that wherever we were, that I would be able to write and do my editing jobs. And if some other kinds of business opportunities came up for Dave, that he could take advantage of them. But we didn't have it all figured out. So I think it's just really about ultimately, how do I put this? Well, let me back up for a second. To get to this point where we made this decision, a lot of things had come before this. So I think just focusing on what you love, which is an old saw, but I really believe it, is so important. So years before this whole thing happened, I had always loved traveling, but I had been in a different marriage at the time with someone who didn't really like to travel, so I didn't do much of it. And then we got a divorce, and I said, okay, I'm going to start traveling as much as I can. I was a teacher, so I had summers off, and so that helped a lot, and I had opportunities in the summer, but I didn't make that much money. So I had certain ways of using frequent flyer miles, staying with friends, finding inexpensive places to go. And I'm really good at bargains, finding bargains online, says Dave, for flying and accessing. Again, there's so many ways now. You don't just have to go to a travel agent. There's so many ways. So I had a lot of fun with that. It was a lot of fun with finding the good bargain, belonging to a lot of different groups online that focus on travel. And then because it felt really good, I went through travel magazines and I would cut out pictures of things that I really wanted to do. And I created this beautiful scrapbook. And then at one point I lost it and I had forgotten I'd even done it. And I found it a couple of years later and I went through it and I looked at every page and I realized every single thing in that scrapbook had happened.
Ooh, goosebumps.
Right. So I guess ultimately what I'm saying is it's not a straight line. It's not going to make a decision and then, A, B, and C are going to happen. For me, it's more about wherever you put your energy, things blossom. They may not in the way that you expect or the way that you, quote, hope, but they do. And so it's just like, watering a garden and, volunteers are going to float up and it's all ultimately the law of attraction.
Right You just said a whole lot.
I did.
One thing is that you had built up desire. You kind of knew what you wanted, even if it had been suppressed for a little while. You wanted to travel, and it was this building of desire. It wasn't a fly-by-night idea. It was something in you that was a part of you, like desire to travel. So everybody's got something like that. Whether or not they've let it out yet is the question. And then what you said early on, I really love, because you're basically saying that the antidote to fear is trust. It's trust in yourself, in your ability to make it. I know I have skills. I know I can make this. If I need money, I can find a way to make money. And it's trust in life. It's trust in the universe that these opportunities will show up, and these cooperative components, the other people that help, whether they're friends you already know or friends you haven't met yet, a friend behind the counter of an airline, everybody's helping you. We're all in this together. So when we go into fear, we're pulling back into that separation thing. Like, I got to figure this all out by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we're fearful, we don't see the cooperating components that just appear everywhere. They're there everywhere. But when we're fearful, we hold our breath, we get tight, and we don't open up and again, just see all the serendipity, all the possibilities ultimately that are really out there. And I do think that sometimes we have to let go of certain things. It's sort of like you have to put down what's in your arms in order to be able to open the door, right? And so just saying, okay, we're going to let go of a house. We're going to let go of being rooted in one spot. As much as we loved Santa Cruz, we also really wanted to experience so much more of the world. And so we're going to let go of this place with the idea that, we could always come back if we wanted to at some point. There would be some way to make that work if that's what we decided we wanted to do. So again, that's a little bit of self-talk that's comforting, right? And but knowing that letting go of that was going to open up all other kinds of possibilities, not knowing what they were, was actually very exciting for me.
Yeah,
and
I bet.
Right. And one of the things that ended up happening was about a year and a half into our adventure, through a variety of wonderful serendipitous events, we became aware of a house that was for sale in Mexico. And in this place where my sister lived, my sister lives down in southern Baja, and we found out about this house and found out that we could buy it for about what most people pay for a car in the United States. And we thought, wow, we could actually have a home that's near the water in a beautiful place that we are excited about being in and pay a lot less than we could have ever imagined. But if we hadn't let go of the place in Santa Cruz, I don't think that wouldn't even have been on my radar. If it had come across my radar, I wouldn't have thought, oh, okay, let's go ahead and get this. But because we didn't have a home, it made it possible to even consider it.
Yeah, you emptied the fertile void and something jumped in.
Right. I like it.
It's that old vestibule gag, you're in the middle, you close the door behind you, and then you open the door in front of you,
Yeah, and sometimes I like to also describe it as when you live this way with a certain kind of trust, doors open to rooms that you didn't even know existed, or you didn't even know the door existed.
Right. And that's our biggest challenge is our minds is only looking at the past and it doesn't know about potential futures, So we have to let the higher mind in, or the inner guidance, or whatever you want to call it, that larger part of ourselves that can see everything. We have to let that have a say at the table. And that's most people's challenge, is that their human mind is taken over and won't let in the other part, the magical part.
Yeah, it's so fun to play in the field of possibilities, actually. I find it thrilling and exciting. And, I like putting it that way, the field of possibilities, because then you can think of it like a game. And I know you like the idea of the Earth game very much. And it sort of turned me onto that concept, and I really like it a lot.
Yes, life is supposed to be fun, according to Abraham Hicks, and I concur. Yeah, the letting go is key. I was interviewing the divine Mel Wells, and she had to let go of Santa Cruz as well. And we were talking about how, if you don't let go voluntarily, sometimes life will yank it out from under you. And there are phases where you feel like the rug's been pulled out from under you. But if you look carefully, there were whispers before that, changes in the air, but you were resisting it. So that the less we resist change, and we can reframe it as a positive thing, because the mind is like, oh no, this is terrible, something I love is going away. But if we get in the habit of saying, well, that means something even better is showing up, if we really program ourselves, then we naturally live that way. It's what we tell ourselves really matters.
Right. And actually in my book, my memoir, Call It Wonder, at the beginning of it, I call it the bed bug rule, because my husband and I were living in an apartment actually in downtown San Jose. And there were, advantages to it, and we were enjoying it, but we were sort of feeling a little bit like, okay, we're ready for something different. Well, then suddenly we got bed bugs in our apartment. And I don't know if you've ever had bed bugs, but they're horrible. They leave these big welts on you. They bite you in the middle of the night. They're elusive. You can't find them. You have to just get rid of everything you own, or burn it, or throw everything in a hot dryer. And it's just horrible. But at that time I'd been doing a lot of this work that we're talking about now. And I remember saying to myself, even in the midst of being up in the middle of the night, because I couldn't sleep and I had to go to work the next day, and I had these horrible bed bugs on me, I kept saying, something good is going to come of this. Something good is going to come of this. This was my mantra. And sure enough, The good thing that came of it was that we ended up finding another really fabulous place to live, way better fit for us than what this place had been, near the beach.
Yay. And, do you feel like maybe it took a minute longer than it could have to realize that, to let go of the bedbug place? I mean, there's always that retrospective wisdom. It's not regret, but just realizing that, we can shift at any point, but sometimes we hold on a little longer and we give ourselves more suffering as a result.
Not in that case, but that's definitely been true in my life at different times. In that case, it was pretty easy to just launch out of the bedbug palace into something else. But I had that, I would say for sure, in my divorce after a 15-year marriage. And yeah, that was the biggest one. That was the biggest one for me. And I came to learn that when someone wants to go, let them go. And I created something. Yeah. And in my case, it was a someone. It was also a something. It was a whole identity. It was a whole way of life. It was a home that we'd shared and friends. And it's the whole thing that you create out of this idea of the relationship and the idea of the perfect relationship and the idea that, we were, this iconic couple. And so, letting go of that was really painful. But everything, not that we need to create suffering in our lives, but I think that suffering like that has taught me so much that I would never do it differently, for sure. I'd say 2 or 3 months of really, really difficult times where actually I wasn't even sure life was worth living. But I had all kinds of angels in this realm and other realms come to me and help me through. And then, of course, as it happens with many people, I said, wow, it turned out that the worst thing that had ever happened to me ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. And then I brought that knowledge, or that experience with me into something that happened later after my husband and I had spent 3 months on this new life of out there, living and traveling without a home. I unexpectedly had a seizure and then found out that I had a brain tumor. And you would think that would be probably one of the most difficult, trying, upsetting events in my life. But honestly, because I had done all the work that I'd done at this point, I was able to experience it in a different way, in a way I couldn't have experienced it 5 years before, 10 years before. I would have been wrapped in fear. And I'm not saying I wasn't fearful at all, but I had this greater sense of this was like a part of the journey. It felt like a really significant and important part of the journey. And again, I'm not completely unafraid of death on whatever intellectual level or whatever, but I do have much more release around that in my life, and a lot less fear, and actually even a little excitement about the idea of, wow, when that happens, what's next? I'm not in a rush, but I do feel that, we all have our time, and that when it happens, I had become very kind of released to that and thought, well, if this is my time, this is my time. I'm going to experience this to the hilt as much as I can, pay attention to everything that's happening, and be grateful for everyone around me that was helping me and supporting me through that process. And it ended up being one of the most remarkable experiences of my life.
Wow. Yeah, I talk to a lot of people who have serious illness experiences, and it's always a gift. Everyone says that. You think it's a tragedy, but it always ends up being a gift, and it broadens your perspective. I mean, anything that brings you out of the ordinary, that expands you and puts your life in perspective is super helpful. I mean, if you place yourself on that deathbed, so to speak, looking back, that puts everything in perspective. Like, what's important here? What do I want to be focusing on? It's about love. It's about the people in my life. It's about, doing good things, feeling good, helping other people, and it has the power to melt the drama away. And that's why you're so inspiring to other people, too. It sounds funny. You're inspiring because you had a seizure and a brain tumor. It really is true. And you can laugh about it,
Right. And you would think that, so we were 3 months into this living without a home thing, and I have this health crisis. And you would think, wow, okay, here are these people with this health crisis and they don't have any place to live. See, I told you so. I told you bad things could happen. But I actually didn't. I didn't get any of that, except maybe my superego might have been at that a little bit. But just, one amazing thing after another unfolded, including some friends that invited us to stay in their home for a little while after my surgery for my recovery, because they happened to be going on vacation just the day after my surgery, and they were going to be gone for 2 weeks. And so they're like, stay in our place. And it turned out to be a really wonderful place to heal, because it was in the redwoods in the mountains, and had this gorgeous deck. And I was able to just sit out there in the sun and just focus on gratitude and focus on the fact that my body is a healing machine and that it wants to find its balance. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm so grateful. Everything that you and I are talking about right now, all the different teachers from Abraham Hicks to Pema Chodron to, I am so grateful for all of them, because it's almost hard for me to imagine what that experience would have been like without this. I might have just gone off the deep end. I don't know, it might have been a really frightening thing. And it turned out to be this incredible experience of growth.
And it was a gift to your husband, Dave, as well, wouldn't you say? Because he stepped into a loving caregiving mode, and it allowed him to expand in the process.
Oh, I didn't even think of it that way. I usually think of it from, my position of gratitude for everything that he did for me and appreciating the hell out of him. But yeah, I guess that could be so too, and also to be, he actually, I don't want to get into too many details about this, but he has a past where he had to learn how to kind of draw his boundaries, because he kind of gave everything of himself away. And I think this experience provided him with an opportunity to caregive, but in a way that really worked for us, where he wasn't totally sacrificing himself. Do you see what I'm saying? But
Yes.
but gave a lot and was so loving and giving, but he knew he had to self-care in order to be there for me. And he did a really good job of maintaining that balance. And I'd never thought about that really before until we talked here. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer that every manifestation is for the highest good of all parties. And it benefits all parties in some way. And it doesn't always look like that on the surface. But if you look with the right kind of attitude and look with enough time and distance sometimes, you can see how it affects everyone. Like, for instance, the friend who hosted you in the Redwoods when you were healing. I mean, that was beneficial to you, but also beneficial to that person, because they were able to give something, and that feels good. Anytime you allow someone to give to you, you're helping them. That's a beautiful feeling.
Wow, what a wonderful insight, Debbie. I really appreciate that. And it's interesting because I just saw her yesterday. She and I just hung out for a day and had a walk on the beach. And I just feel this incredible closeness to her. And I know a lot of it's born out of that. So having these life experience with the other people in our lives, and where we do have these opportunities to come together and give to one another, it just enriches that relationship, enriches our lives so much.
Yay. Well, you've enriched everyone's lives who's watching this today. So thank you so much for coming on Spiritual Badass TV. So, Kate, how can people get a hold of you? What's the best place on the interweb for them to find you and check out your books and your blog and all that?
Thank you. My website, kateevanswriter.com, KATEEVANS writer.com.
All right. Keep on with your spiritual badassery, girl.
You too. High five. Oh, and kiss. Mwah.